Hi, my friends and family. My name's Trey, and today, after all these other videos, I decided it's a good moment to tell you how I feel about what is the real divine masculine, putting him in his proper place. Instant karma gonna get you. Maybe might just knock you off your feet. Because we're all in this thing called life here together. You and me and everyone you meet. What in the world were you thinking of? Laughing in the face of love. Who in the world do you think you are? Well, you're a superstar. Right you are. 'Cause we all shine on. Like the moon and the stars and the sun. What is the real divine masculine? Putting him in his proper place, which is in my flesh suit. And I give three contemporary examples of actually three friends of mine who embody it. What if creation is a yin-yang? You know, in the Mayan creation story, they actually say something to the effect of a man and a woman got together and created this. So, that being the case, say before Lucifer or Anu or any of the Syrian wolf gods came around, who did our mother, Christ Sophia, who did she copulate with? Well, what is the real divine masculine or father principle of creation? Who is the actual divine masculine part of the original creator? What do you think? With the Luciferian hybridization, all the DNA unplugging and attempt at making us all their slaves, and AI human slaves in 2.0, and narcissist psychopath wardens, notwithstanding, taking all that out of the picture, looking both before and after these millions of years of war, rape, violence, and coercion-based trauma bonding to our junior gods, what is the pure principle of really, actually divine masculine, say in the respectful gods? Okay, what is an enlightened man's protective behavior? Well, down the centuries and millenniums of abuse and coerced slavery, we've been taught that the masculine is to protect, including killing enemies or enemies, put a roof over your head and put food on the table, take care of the container. Who here in the audience, I mean, some of you have stopped to think at how inverted all of it has become through fear. Take care of the container, your shelter. Perhaps, if you live in the Manhattan or Los Angeles or Santa Clara, Santa Cruz, San Francisco counties, you believe everyone has to pay for their box or their property with all their lives. Hustle for that property tax and rent every moment of every day, all your life. Work all the time for your box, your rent or mortgage. Focus all of your energies, if you're in around Seattle or somewhere like that, where that's the so-called cost of living. Focus all of your energies if you have to be a man, or if you are a man or masculine. Okay. Go on, taking care of the container or the womb or room, the objects, your car, your phone, refrigerator, your shower, your bed, and your woman, and your space for your children to grow up and and use guns and bullying and narcissism and obey the social Darwinist dog-eat-dog sick ideology, really, of fighting and competing for scraps of food from the endless war and mind control, master imposter gods, tyrannical tables of control. That's right. The dogs of war, the financial wage slaves, the matrix-controlled humanoids have to take scraps from the master junior gods' tables when they turn this into a war planet, a slavery planet very rapidly here now if we don't change it. So, a sick ideology of fighting and competing for scraps of food from the endless war and mind control, master, imposter, gods, tyrannical tables of control. You should have a loaded gun in your house if you believe that this is the only reality, what you see before you here. A machete, at least a machete in your van, right? Or always worried about security, on guard, ready to fight any intruders, willing to die in battle for protection of the hive. I mean, I think about, I don't know what spiritual teachers or speaker of truth it was, who said there is no such thing as security in the mortal life. You could be killed or die of something anytime, and etc. And I thought, well, that sounds fairly accurate. But then, the idea of faith as a shield. When I was, thinking I was in my early 20s, I was going to labor ready to get a job over here in North Charleston, right near where I was born in the ghetto. And I got there kind of late and there was no jobs, so I went to the bus stop. And on the ground by the bus station, I see this purple book, an Ascension Handbook by Tony Stubbs. It happened to be this Englisher with a really Cockney accent, and it was published in Boulder, Colorado. And I'll never forget this prayer in that book. It said, it was an energy shield. I only let in and out light and love. So I certainly believe in that. I was just hearing somebody talk about on one of my 3 references of the contemporary divine masculine, his most current interview with Erica, to speaking about the armor of God, they call it. But it's so. But actually, prayers can actually create a shield. Which is actually, I've shared that technique here in a few of these videos. It's certainly kept me alive many times. But the average person has to have the loaded gun, the machete, and the fear. Always willing to be a slave for their wife and their box, and always afraid of an intruder, is going to come, and always worried about security, on guard, ready to fight any intruders, willing to die in battle for protection of the hive. What are you, man? A bee? Mark Passio quit his position as a Satanist high priest to, make these amazing presentations and even all-day seminars and anarchist conventions presenting the truth of the Black Witch mind control of the Illuminati witches to the masses, to everyone with the courage to listen, to present the truth of Black Witch mind control schemes in the mainstream media to help tens of thousands of souls, even because he's got that big of a crowd on his YouTube, like 100,000 subscribers or whatever. Tens of thousands of souls awakened to the Matrix suckfest. Mark Passio has a gun, I mean, maybe I'd feel the pressure to do that, the coercion to do that in his position, but you see, on the surface, that is understandable, considering how many he has helped to wake up from the mind control and the slavery. Going deeper to the purest depths of human origin and future, I disagree with him on this key point, that he's going to spew venom and spew his beer. He's a vegan, and spew his vegan anger through the beer when he hears me say this, even if he watches this. But he believes that humans are neither good nor evil, just programmable, and I say that they're originally good. Going deeper to the purest depths of human origin and future, experientially, and testing your own faith and the actual protector within, the divine masculine force within, and deep understanding, gnosis and faith in Christ Sophia and Yeshua, understanding, overstanding, and understanding what Christ Yeshua represents. Okay, It's not, and it's not the man nailed to the cross. That's what the Romans and all the black priests, all the evil ones that ran the system intended for him, that archetype to symbolize. But you know what? Who is really nailed to the cross? When you open a Christmas present, that box is a cross, right? So who's really nailed to the Christmas cross? It was the normie, the consumer, the materialist, the 3D slave, nailed to the 666 is actually the number of atoms in the human, the carbon allotype. It has something to do with the carbon atoms. So and we can learn what the divine masculine is experientially, and you study Christ. Okay, so in deep understanding, gnosis, and faith, and Christ Sophia and Yeshua, we can see through this ancient veil of deception that we need to violence to protect us. Okay? It's fear. It's, fear-based. So we create inner space for safety mentally. This is the first step, no matter what you're doing. Just like I just mentioned the Tony Stubbs book, the Ascension Handbook, is the first time I ever heard that word. So it must have been meant to be that I was hanging out invited into the Zoom by Laura Eisenhower, so here we are. So what, for if I must do physical harm to another person, spiritual kindergarten again, some people need it. What am I protecting? What will the result be of physical self-defense? This is why I would say to the wise, Aikido would be the most appropriate thing if you're going to be around violent people to learn Aikido, right? So just like vegan would be the most ideal diet for karma, but if you say steal your eggs from your chickens or ducks and respect them and treat them with kindness, or the goats or cows that you milk. I mean, there's some cows are considered divine animals in India. I've seen pictures of sadhus who would just keep one personal female cow. They seem pretty blissed out, frankly. But so, what does it prove to respond to violence with violence? An eye for an eye. Like the sacred divine feminine, it's not what you want him or her to be. It's not what you want the sacred divine masculine to be. It's not what you want or think it is in a cliche way. It's not going to be like Rambo. It is seen more in my new teacher, Bob Falconer, and my friend Sean Bond's works. Men who can gently face the apex predators we call the archons in the dark realms. Honestly, I might kick the gunman in the belly or crotch at the worst comes to worst if I had to escape. But any violence I do towards another will harm myself, obviously. So it's just the fact of this, the way the universe works, So killing yourself or another person or harming them does not assert protection. Even the psychological abuse of a narcissistic predator, that does not protect you. Obeying the voice in your head that says to shoot yourself or someone else, that does not protect you. Dying for the rent is giving all of your energy, or the vast majority of it, to your landlord and the government. So that's why I recommend to live in a beautiful place like this, where you could be in some kind of paradise and possibly find a deal if you have to rent. Often you don't see any way around it. Often you've given over your life for protection. I mean, the USA and France having the zodiac sign Cancer in the inverted form. This is what it amounts to. Is like you become obsessed with this false protection of money or your castle walls, your automobile. And you say you'd never join the military. Can you see how inverted our idea of masculinity in this Luciferian Illuminati culture, so-called culture, is? It exists to protect the box, the cube womb, if you will, in essence. Lords over the unaware man gradually over centuries, remaking him into the beta male, the yes man, the emasculated, whipped husband, the worker bee, or someone like me that adopted the form of hermit in the form temporarily in order to heal, but still have to do the shadow work, or even if it's simply overturning the archetype forces that think they run the internet, or keep me from my audience, for example. Like, there's ways around, I'm learning as I go. It's a learning curve. Okay, I jumped into all of this coming on 2 years ago here. I'm about to celebrate 2 years of this, doing this, man. Woohoo! Started right here almost 2 years ago. It'll be in another few weeks here. So I was only joking, though. But this, service is helping me to assert that divine masculine within myself, actually. So, but the emasculated, whipped husband, the worker bee, all of this compliance is not masculine. It is psychic castration. In other words, it's cutting off your nuts psychically. Now I've never reproduced, so it is very difficult for me to empathize with the horrors, psychic horrors that, probably every single person who's a parent in this day and age they attempt to force you through. I've never reproduced, so it's hard to empathize with the intense psychological weaponry pointed straight at all parents in the so-called year 2024. But when I was getting ready to, when I was preparing my second and third brain for this video, I thought about, I've got to write this down, that I was doing my laundry at the University Wash in Santa Cruz one time, and I was reading, I think it was the National Geographic, and it was an article about this couple in San Diego, and they grew up there and they loved it, but they had 2 small children, and the rent was jacked up so high that they decided they couldn't handle it, so they piled into a huge conversion van, and they drove to, I believe it was Colorado, and they discovered that they could live on BLM land legally for 2 weeks at a pop, and the rangers would come and check on them here and there and make sure they leave after 2 weeks. So they decided to raise their 2 children on the BLM land rather than, have all the hours of their whole week occupied by the rent of San Diego in 2021 or whatever it was. And so, although this could be perceived easily, being the grandson of a 33-degree Freemason, is very easy for me to perceive this as super reckless, but that's just the fear, or the archons possibly, or the Luciferic voice. Because, see, in a way, this man is, and the woman, because we all have both genders, within our psyche, they're utilizing the divine masculine here to have the faith that their children won't get abducted by aliens or rapists, or that their children will be safe, and their children will be far more prepared for life. And I read a book about a blonde model who was doing a job, Ophiuchus, I believe, or Sagittarius or Ophiuchus from New York City, blonde, was doing a modeling gig in Paris, and these 2 explorer guys, they thought she was really hot, and they invited her to come with them, and she spent several years living on this reservation. I'll see if I can dig up the title of it later, in South America, one of the last native tribes in the jungles of South America. She lived with them for several years and wrote a wonderful little book about it. And the 2-year-olds were helping to raise the infants, and they were all way more responsible. So it's interesting, how much the media influences all that, right? So it's hard, but it's hard for me to empathize with it. But I thought, this couple, man, they really have the faith, they really have the faith in themselves to be able to pull this off, and all the, all their parents and friends or whoever telling them not to do it or something like that. I mean, the guy got a job, and the story went that at one point their van broke down and he lost his job, and so they really suffered to do it. But teaching their children freedom at a young age, I thought it was beautiful. As someone who was was able to survive in a someone else's campsite for like 7 years and not get in trouble, I was it's not that I'm happy for them, although it's in a way it's beautiful, as I say, for the children to learn all the skills they'll learn in the wilds and experience the wonderful things you experience in nature. It's far more dangerous, so it's interesting. It allows them to get more real, perhaps, in a way, you could say. But something made me write that down because I felt that or I was interested also to see what you, the audience, feel. Is that couple, are they exhibiting the divine masculine, or are they being reckless? What do you think? So, especially in the USA, I can see weaponized overwhelm. Like I'm going to make a video about that overwhelm itself is a certain archon. So weaponized overwhelm can put the archon's fangs fully into the veins of a normal parent here. If they're not a spiritual person, if they're not aware of the if they're not aware of the true Christ, it can really stress them out extremely bad. So on the other hand, why did the dark controllers feel that they had to hang Jesus or Yeshua on the cross? Why did they have to nail his wrist or his hands into the cross, into the wooden plank? Why did they feel they had to do that? Nail his wrists or hands into the wood. Why did they think they had to shoot John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., and John Lennon? Why did whoever it was or whatever it was have to shoot and kill them? Let's see, what I feel is that the dark side are suicidal. They want to. That's why they don't do it anymore, but also because there's no one that charming. So all four of them had become popular and for fully embracing the real divine masculine within. That's why they shot Martin Luther King Jr., JFK. Well, JFK, it was because he was going to reveal what the Greys were doing. And so, but still, that was an act of the divine masculine, to have the courage to stand up to MLK, to the Majestic 12. That's the divine masculine. So, he's not an alpha dog in a hierarchy. He has equanimity. Ron DeSantis, to have the courage to sue the Biden administration for forcing everyone on public transportation, buses, planes, and trains to wear a mask. I took the Amtrak to the hot spring in Colorado 2 weeks after that happened. That to me is an example of the divine masculine. He's standing up. He has the courage to get the possibility of being shot or being attacked, his character attacked all the time by the mainstream media, to keep our right to not have to wear a mask. Okay? Christ, Yeshua, was so threatening to the blood-drinking junior god vampire patriarchy because he embodied and taught the true spiritual manhood. You recognize and even honor the Christ and free will of all others, if you can, if they're not in your face, if they're not causing you direct harm or duress. Okay, so as you can see, the true moral cosmic law, the true original principle of free will, like I say, the law of non-interference from the original planet Earth, the Christ and human race original experiment, was that we were all given free will. But if we harm others, again, the government, the militaries, the wars, the endless wars, psychological wars have all inverted this principle, right? Because they're fake gods. Okay, the real God created, or the original creators created this planet so that you have free will. But if you break cosmic law, if you harm someone else, if you do something to interfere with someone else's free will, you are breaking the law, the code of this planet. Okay. So true spiritual manhood equals you recognize and even honor the Christ and free will of others. You remind folks to be harmless and respect the freedom of choice of others. Okay, that's my opinion. Yes, the Psalms may be true in some ways, and certain ways, but to initiate war or conflict, you're making a huge mistake. Was Rastafari the only king who protected himself? He shot the Romans when they broke in his house. Yet, if he weren't a king or somewhat materialistic, why would he shoot? In other words, he wouldn't have had to shoot them if he wasn't, in some ways materialistic, or at least being a paternal in the sense of wanting to protect his children and wife, but also his food, his house, and I'm not saying kill yourself. I'm not saying hang yourself on the cross. I'm saying that as soon as over half the world recognizes the oneness, it's over for the warmongers. Okay, they can't convince the people when they realize that peace is our nature. Okay, I'm not. I made a video about this. This is a whole other separate issue I'm not going to get into in this video, about the question about whether or not you should have firearms. I made another video about that, but I'm not bringing that topic up. I'm just saying, if you, at the highest level, you wouldn't desire, you realize that you don't want to attract the violence. So I am not saying you will always be able to escape physical self-protection. I'm saying awareness of the truth of the original goodness of the old Christed Namulu human race brings about a remembrance of how to enact the divine masculinity. In other words, if you really remember the truth, if you really can, in your heart of hearts, as they say, what Lisa Renee calls your higher heart, also in the divine part of you, if you're born again, or if you're enlightened, or even if you had flashes of it, even just psilocybin or bubble hash or whatever, you've had a flash of that feeling, you realize that the real you is the non-judgmental, the member of the human family that includes, or the species that created all beings, all things. So the original goodness of the old Christed Namulu human race brings about, in some of these experiences, a remembrance of how to enact the divine masculinity. How do you act when it comes to how are you going to treat other people? It is not, or protect. It is not spiritual bypassing. Okay? You find where you find spiritual bypassing is the religious cults, the mainstream media, all of the Abrahamic traditions, and all of the cults where it's not quite as bad as Jim Jones and the Kool-Aid, but it's psychologically similar. They kill you, they destroy you with fear and guilt tripping and all the dark ideas, and invert you into a shriveling, inverted form of yourself who's not really you. Okay, the real creator would never do these crimes, but she and he, they allow these to occur because free will includes all beings, all types of beings here. So it is not spiritual bypassing to enact the divine masculine. It's simply protecting the truth of peace, the truth, protecting the divine feminine. First, you must do the shadow work to even begin to know how to enact with the divine masculine at all. If you haven't done the shadow work, you're going to be violent, or you're going to be judgmental, or you're going to falter into the fake inverted junior god patriarchal thinking of you have to punish others, you have to harm others, etc. So you're going to have to do the shadow work to get rid of the fake patriarchal ideology out of your mind first. You must do the shadow work to remove the archontic scaffolding of the narcissistic, predatorial, archonic patriarchy within your mind. Okay? Then, if you could do that, or most of it, then ultimately, God the Father principle, the real Father principle, or the active yang or masculine principle of creation, or protection, will be where he belongs. where he always was, in your flesh suit. If you don't harm others and you know how to protect human creation, human life. Perhaps Mark Passio didn't go far back enough in time, or so-called time, in his research to study the ancient days enough to allow himself to remember humans are not just programmable objects. They were originally divine, respectful beings, capable of unbelievably amazing adventures and art. And, I'll be right back. And so, I don't think we can really fathom the powers of not only evil of our subconscious and the human mind and human spirit, but also the benevolence, of course. John Lennon made popular songs which spread, several of them at least, spread real divine masculine protection, treating everyone as you and your family. He brought the oneness into popular music. How dare he do that, man? And treating everyone as you or as family because they are. For telling millions the truth, like Jesus, he had to be assassinated. But there is a reason why they don't do that in this century, in the 2000s, because the fact that no one popular is that charming or well loved as those guys. Not only that, but there's hundreds of us here too. And also, they were successful in using the mainstream media to get the majority to not even think about Christ. And it's like, the devil's greatest trick was convincing everyone he didn't exist. But also, I would say, the second greatest trick was convincing everyone that Christ didn't exist, or all those people who don't believe it doesn't exist. Because I would have died so many times in this one flesh suit if it wasn't for that armor of the true Christ. Us little guys, in the recent years, just get shadow banned. They quit shooting divine masculine leaders because the murderers exasperated their popularity and emblazoned the reason why they did it. Emblazoned humanity with more memories of speeches and songs full of the divine masculine. The school system in the USA took a holiday every year to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. And I enjoy listening to his speeches every year lately. And so whoever killed them and shot them all, emblazoned the oneness, the Christ, the spirit of the true Christ in humanity far more than it was. Okay? Emblazoned humanity with more memories of speeches and songs, full of the divine masculine protection of the oneness. He is fearless, yet not reckless. Some people would think those guys were reckless, but you have to get the word out. So it is not necessarily about boxes. As a houseless person or a tent dweller for years in Santa Cruz, California, this one fact never left my mind for long. The need to embody the divine masculine. Yeah, like when you're out in the open with all kinds of other spirits and flesh suits, if you don't have common respect for people, you're a target for violence. You're a target for getting massive harm done to you if you're controlled by fear. If you don't have a legal box and you're controlled by fear, you're a target for massive harm. Okay? So the need to embody the divine masculine, it helped me in that sense. It served my spirit to remember, because I felt that I was forced, especially since Santa Cruz is haunted, to be forced to remember the Christ, or I would have a really hard time. So if I wasn't in a good headspace. So the need to embody the divine masculine, often around mentally ill, homeless people, addicts, drunks, tweakers, and stressed out wage slaves, literal wage box slaves, a lot of wounded and tortured, traumatized souls would force the issue, when I encounter them in line or something on the street. The benevolent side of not having a legal box is it forces you to embody the real divine masculine if you want a peaceful existence. The divine masculine might use psychology, meditation, or plant medicines to, to help balance and remember how to get into the proper flow of healing through her love. Otherwise, the archons will render you trauma bonded to a seemingly endless series of rewounding psychological battles and tests. If you're in an NPD relationship or family, especially fighting over your non-existent territory with the false masculine or ego, you don't need a gun, a militia, an army, a CIA, or wars if you have the real divine masculine. Where is the place for the real divine masculine? Within your body. You don't need any vampire, exopolitical, false saviors. It is enacted with discerning faith in the truth. That's where you find the divine. The divine masculine is the actions you take, or anyone takes, based on respect and peace and discernment of the true nature of human beings, which is respectful. You know what you do to others, you do to yourself. The real divine masculine doesn't need a box or tons of money, a sports car, or big family to prove himself. He proves himself every time you take action in every time you take action in harmlessness to maintain peace. He does not back down from shadow work. He does not harm another. He is respect in love, just as Christ Sophia is, as her counterpart, as her husband. It is important to note, everybody within, as Carl Jung pointed out, has both genders on the inside. How would the real divine masculine handle a problem or conflict? It's going to be a win-win situation and in peace. Whatever he comes up with, first you got to recognize he would be holding hands with the divine feminine when he makes that decision. His actions are not divorced from her, from the goddess Christ. Okay, his actions will be holding hands with the divine feminine, Christ Sophia, in the mutual decision that they make. The divine masculine, or the yin yang of creation, the divine masculine is met in the proper actions of the real divine plan. In other words, creating this planet into a garden, a paradise, organic farm, an endless dance party where no one gets raped. He will never initiate harm. Okay, the real divine masculine will never initiate harm. I learned this concept from the voluntarist. I learned the voluntarist and libertarian concept of the non-aggression principle from David James Rodriguez in Santa Cruz. And it's an interesting story. David was a salesman, and Dave was a pretty good. He is a pretty talented. He's a talented motivational speaker, I would say. And he published a man named Gatto's book about the real history of the forced school system. K through 12. The forced compulsory school system. And he said that he was at the Anarchapulco convention in Tijuana, I believe, having fun and thinking, why can't I do this every day or every weekend? And so then the lockdowns happened, and several months into it, in April of 2020, he started having a big bonfire at Twin Lakes Beach, and the ranger would come and pour water on his fire, every fire. And so his friend Teresa, she actually wrote out a long legal letter and used several long legalese terms from the lawyer jargon legalese terms. And they typed it out, and then they put at the bottom of it the citizens of California, and then they got about 10 of their friends to sign their names on it. And it said something to the effect of, if the CDC or the state of California was an individual and he'd done these things like not allow them to use the beach, it would be a crime, etc. And that we expect to be left alone. And so for I think it was over a year or so, they didn't come back. And so, but what happened is they couldn't. It's a funny story. They couldn't figure out how to get this manila envelope with this legal letter to the police. So because it was all locked up. And so they noticed one of the chiefs of police bedroom door window was open, so they threw this manila envelope and it landed on his bed. And that's when the police didn't come back for a year. And so I started going to their events once or twice a month. They'd have them every Saturday night, and they start off with a band. A man in his early 50s who graduated from UCSC has a band called the Funky Fathers and the Freedom Foundation, and he's a pretty talented songwriter, and he wrote a bunch of songs about how the lockdowns were crimes and stuff. So I really enjoyed jamming with him at least about twice a month for about 6 months there. And then, so what happened is David would have David James Rodriguez. Dave would probably have like 5, 10, or 15. A lot of elderly people would bring folding chairs, and after the band was over, he'd have kind of a little motivational pep talk, and he'd always say the non-aggression principle, and sometimes we'd do a silent prayer for a couple minutes, and then he'd turn on some dance music, and we'd party, and you could probably choose between 2 or 3 different conversations about freedom and the truth. It was a wonderful event, and you'd see CIA guys in black shirts sitting there being silent watching us, but that's just how it is and those kind of things. So anyway, he discovered that insurance was only for you only legally have to pay car insurance for a commercial vehicle. So he decided to go without car insurance, but because he was this handsome 35-year-old Mexican guy and then sports car, and the police started rubbing his face in the ground, and he finally when they'd catch him turning too fast or speeding or something, and they finally he had just decided to get insurance a month before. His birthday was like a couple days before July 4th, and he says, I'm going to have 2,000 people on the beach for my birthday and the 4th. And then the tow truck came to his girlfriend's house and impounded his car while he was there, and he made a little tiny dent in the back of the tow truck and the part they used to tow, jumping up and down on it. And so they kept him in jail for that, just for that. They kept him in jail for 2 weeks, and the judge tried to convince him they had the right to put him on antipsychotics. But it was really because he had several hundred followers on Facebook and in person even that he was teaching on how the government were a bunch of criminals, and how he was teaching basic moral law. And the non-aggression principle is, you see, anarchism has nothing to do with chaos and violence. That's the media that spun those lies. It has to do with you're against the archy. Archy means like Bill Gates making rules on you. Archy, that's what archy leads to, hierarchy. So anarchy is someone who's against the hierarchy. So anyway, so the non-aggression principle is sort of a modern version of the golden rule, from modern folks, that I just looked it up on Wikipedia, that the voluntary, he started this club was called the Santa Cruz Voluntarist, and they had made a beautiful flag and everything. And so the Wikipedia said the voluntarists and the libertarians use this saying, and my CEO of Odyssey, the original CEO of Odyssey, is a wonderful libertarian candidate, Jeremy Kaufman. So anyway, so the principle, the non-aggression principle, is you can do whatever you want to your own stuff or yourself, but just don't harm anyone else or their property, And I always add the caveat: don't harm yourself or the other people's spirits either, or their, your own spirit. So anyway, so he was basically teaching some things I didn't want you to know, and after he got out of jail, he moved back to Mount Shasta. So God bless his heart. So I'll leave the link to his channel. He's kept doing some wonderful YouTube shows here and there every couple weeks or so. Every so often he'll do an interesting interview. So I'll leave the link, and so bless him for I'll bring my friend Dave up because I think he embodied the divine masculine. Oh, and he would go every Sunday with his girlfriend Bernadette and some of their other friends with signs that would say, during the lockdown, signs that said free hugs. And so we got kicked out of Santa Cruz for all that. So bless him for those deeds. Where, as I say, that he was embodying I would say he was embodying the divine masculine in a way in those deeds. So Robert Falconer's work, I'm almost about to finish his book, and it's of course rocked my world. It put some tears in my face when I first watched an interview with this man, because his childhood was the cliche of every horrible story you've heard about a childhood, but yet he got a degree in psychology, and in his 70s now he is removing entities, or what I call archons and evil spirits, from people's bodies. And the thing that rocks my world about the whole thing is not just that he's exercising people, but he does it with gentleness, with love, he somehow is able to respect the demons, the archons, the evil fake controllers that cause teenagers to go on shooting sprees, and he's able to get them out of people with gentleness. It kind of amazes me, but I would say he's embodying the divine masculine and doing these kinds of works. And then we have my friend Sean Bond, Psionic League on YouTube. Sean Bond is a young man who's a psychic who basically is openly talking about how he removes these kind of entities like archons, and how he's able to cleanse energy, and he also uses love and kindness to disentangle or unmix with these, what Robert Falconer calls unattached burdens. So in peace we defeat the archons. Without rescue and the real Christ in both genders. Okay? In peace we defeat the archons within and resurrect the real Christ in both genders. Okay? It's always an inside job. If you're lucky, if you can find someone like Sean Bond or Robert Falconer, if you have the money, if you have the cash or money to pay someone like that to evict these entities. But yeah, as I've said, the last sign of the zodiac is Pisces. I got a double Pisces, because in the Pisces you got addictions, and you got a connection to the divine, and then your 3D mortal coil. So that's why I say the last battle on earth in the zodiac is the battle against the self. The Pisces zodiac sign, you battle against your divine self, then you have your mortal coil, your habit brain. And so but we know that there is no inner me outside of our soul. That's where the archons can strike. And so you lose the desire to harm another person in your last lifetime, because you realize it's false. You don't want to harm yourself. So the divine masculine has been heavily weaponized and attacked and inverted, or they tried to invert it, but it's it's obvious. The Christ is the greatest example. However, it's not about martyrdom. It's about embodiment, frequency. And when the majority attain the frequency, or even in your house, your clique, or your cult, or your group, your community, your family, or whatever, then the vibration will rise. The oneness is inherently the creator of all beings is the same, I and I. If you enjoyed this and you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Odyssey or Rumble if you want to hear more about the dark side. And if you have the courage, my family, create a great day. I'm loving you, bros and sisters. You can protect yourself. That's how I stayed alive all these years.